All right, y'all. Welcome to the Conversations with the Brother podcast. I'm here tonight, just having a conversation with my father, my mentor, the guy who raised me, who taught me to be the man that I am today. I wanted to sit and have a conversation with your dad, and I wanted to just kind of talk about your life. You know, how you were raised. Some of your experiences coming up, some of the things that you experienced, what brought you to Islam, maybe even ask you for some advice that you might have for some other people that may be watching, or maybe that'll see this video. So let's just start right off, man, with, where you were born and raised, how many brothers and sisters you had, and what your youth was like, what was like coming up for you.
Well, I was born in Washington, D.C. I guess my earliest memories of my growing up years were going to school, going to J.O. Wilson Elementary School. Living on G Street Northeast. I lived at 664 G Street Northeast. And, we, as kids, we got to know each other, I had certain friends I hung with, one guy named Wallace. Wallace had a brother named Paul. And they had a bigger brother named, they called him Big Dan. Mm-hmm. But his mother and father's name was Fields. His father's name, I never knew his father's first name, but we used to always tease him about his mother's name, because, when the movie came out, Lilies of the Field, with Sidney Poitier, we used to always holler about, hey, Wallace, where Lily of the Field's at,
About his mother?
Yeah,
wow,
but we used to join on each other, man,
mm-hmm.
and did things that kids do, man. We used to shoot marbles and just shoot tops. A lot of kids don't even know what shooting marbles and shooting tops is today, but
you're right about that.
You just draw a circle in the sand and you put whatever marbles that you had that belonged to you, that you own, you put them up, and if you lost, you lost,
So they was if you lost your marbles?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, literally lost your marbles.
Yeah, you couldn't get them back,
Okay.
And I was good at that, man. I was good at shooting marbles, man.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
Well, at the time, I didn't have.
How many biological siblings did you have? And we'll get to later on.
Well, I lived with my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother, and my aunt's son and daughter. She had two sons, one named Kerry and one named Clifford, and a daughter named Brenda. And my mother's and my aunt's three brothers, Ray, Gene, and Freddie. Mm-hmm. We all lived in that house, and it was to me, man, it was like, it was wonderful to me because I was a child, Mm-hmm. I mean, I was a kid, man. I was like, 9, 10, like that. And, my mother used to take me to church all the time on Sundays. And, mm-hmm. and when I got older, she used to bring little girls home with me all the time and be my playmate. And we played all right.
Really?
But, yeah, man, we, I used to play with little toy soldiers, mm-hmm. little cowboy Indians on horses and things like that. Mm-hmm. Because my mother wouldn't let me go out the yard for the most part, when I was young, when I was that young. Mm-hmm. I was 8 or 9 years old, she wouldn't let me go out the yard like that. And so as I got older, though, and, I was singing in church. They used to call me Little Master Gregory,
Mm-hmm.
Come on up here and sing us a song, and I sang up there and sang, different, religious songs. My mother played the piano for the church. So, we should just have fun as kids, man. Going back and forth to school, man. You can't see it now. It's underneath my hair. But, we used to go to school in the wintertime, and it would be ice on the back of the playground. And we used to run and slide on the ice,
That's dangerous.
And so I was sliding on the ice, and I ran into somebody and fell, and my teeth, I bit my lip, and my teeth went through my
There you go.
through my skin, through my bottom lip, They had to rush me to the hospital and all that, man, Anyway,
Now the mother you grew up with, her name was Bernice, right?
Yeah, Bernice Johnson.
Bernice Johnson. Okay, was Bernice Johnson your biological mother?
No.
Okay, so when did you?
Matter of fact, I went to school all the way through Turl Junior High School as Gregory Johnson.
Gregory Johnson. Okay, and when did?
And that's all. And everybody in the neighborhood knew me as Gregory Johnson.
Okay.
But I used to pray, and I used to ask God, why I don't have no brothers and sisters. Everybody else got brothers and sisters, And I used to pray and ask God, man, why I don't have brothers and sisters? Why I can't have brothers and sisters, man? But little did I know that I had 18 other brothers and sisters, man.
18.
18.
Okay. And when did you come to this realization that you had brothers and sisters?
Well, fast forward, I got to, I started singing on WYCB radio station for Lucille Banks Robinson. She used to own WYCB. And, she used to have me sing on a Christmas program every year.
Okay.
And that led me to working for what's called today DC Rec. Back in the day, it was called Hospitality House.
Okay.
And, the lady came over in my yard, and she was a senator, Nadine Winters.
Okay.
Her and Lucille Banks Robinson, who owned WYCB, they started Hospitality House in Washington, D.C. for all the youth to have something to do. And they used to take us everywhere, man. They used to take us to Atlantic City and Coney Island and Hershey Park and, different bus excursions,
So this was a great experience for you as a youth.
It was, we used to go everywhere, and so the lady, Nadine Winters, asked me, which one of y'all want a job? So I said, I do. So she gave me the job of dumping the trash in the building, sweeping the floors, cleaning the bathrooms up, that kind of thing,
Okay.
That's how I got in. Actually, I got into housekeeping doing that because that's what I did for hospitality, and I was making like $100 a week.
A week.
A week.
Wow. Well, that's not a lot more than what the kids make today.
I know, but then it was a lot of money.
Right.
It was really a lot of money then, because I used to take my little check, man, to the bank, and I used to tell her, she said, how you want your money? I said, give me all ones,
People still do that today, though.
I had a knot, man, like that, I was cool, man. And Curry, my cousin Curry, my Aunt Florice's son, he used to take me downtown every week.
Okay.
And buy me something, a pair of shoes or some jeans or a jacket or something, underwear or something. He would always do that for me, Okay. And he was on the ROTC at Dunbar.
Okay.
He was a lieutenant, so he always carried the sword, So we used to, when I was going to Turl Junior High, we used to go to school early just to see Dunbar ROTC drill.
Okay.
Because they would drill around the whole block.
Okay.
And they were sharp, man, And that was back in the day, man, when ROTC was big and school bands had bands, schools had bands and everybody played instruments and stuff. And that's how I come out. I walk y'all down the avenue when y'all was in elementary school.
And saved the patrols.
And y'all won the first place, But I mean, that was fast forward. But back to my childhood days, man. I started working at Hospitality House and going on trips and whatnot. And then I met a guy named Norman Durham.
Okay.
He played bass guitar.
Okay.
And he said, man, we got a band, you know. Because I used to beat on the cars, right? You know, play, you know, like I'm playing bongos on the car, you know. And he's like, man, you want to join our band? I said, yeah, sure. I joined. So I had a set of bongos, you know. And they used to call me Lil Bongo, you know.
Okay.
And the name of our group was Soul Sparklers.
Okay, Soul Sparklers.
And man, we used to do block parties, and we used to do, you know, like in different clubs and stuff, you know. You know, where you go and you shoot pool, and they had a bar over here, and then they had a dance floor. We used to be the house band sometime in different places, in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, you know.
Okay.
And so, playing in the band, working with the hospitality house, you know, I just ended up just being all over the place, man. Then my mother put me in a group through the church called Heaven's Little Angels.
Okay.
And we had to learn every book of the Holy Bible because we had to recite that. After they would call us up in the front of the church we went to sing at, and we would sing a few songs, and then we would recite all the books of the Holy Bible. And you know, that blew the church away. It was like, wow.
Okay.
Them little people can do all that, you know. Right. I mean, we was like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, like that, man. We were really young, you know.
Okay.
But it was like 5 of us. It was a blind dude named John. He fascinated me because he could read Braille, you know.
Okay.
And I never knew how. I used to always wonder how the blind people read. And he showed me. He said, "This is how I read," and he read to me, you know.
Wow.
Just running his fingers over the dots on the pages, you know. And he was real smart, you know. They had another dude named Huey. Me and his sister was hitting it off. He ain't like that, you know.
Okay.
But she dug me, you know. She used to always sit on my lap when we drove somewhere, because we all had to pile in one car. She would always sit on my lap, you know. He ain't like that. Man, why you got... I was like, man, it ain't like that. It ain't like that. But, you know, we was tight.
Okay.
And, you know, the lady that was in charge of us named Nellie Anderson, man, she played saxophone.
Okay.
But
so you were around a lot of musicians coming up.
Yeah. Like my mother's boyfriend, my foster mother's boyfriend, because her husband left her. Okay. So she had a boyfriend, and he played lead guitar. Okay. And they sang with one of them gospel groups, you know. Yeah, Jesus, dum 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 dum. Oh Jesus, oh Jesus. He played in that kind of group, and I sang with them one time, you know. Okay. And then Brenda. She was with a singing group. She had Pat and 2, 3 other girls. They sang together, but they needed a lead singer. Okay. And so they, come on, Greg, you gonna sing with us? You know. So I was the only guy with these girls. Okay. But I was singing, you know, lead, and we would sing different songs, you know. And you know, one thing just led to another, man. Like I said, I got with the band, man. We was playing with them, and then as I got older, you know, I started working a summer job called Black Drama in Corporate. Okay. And you know, the guy that was in charge of us, he would sit down with us, and we would write plays and do skits and improvisations on stage. You know, and we used to ride around on and perform on the showmobile. Okay. It was a long 18-wheeler truck. They used to pull it. Side of it up, and it was a portable stage. I don't mean to cut you, but they need to get back to some of that for you know, because you know the youth don't have anything to do. That's a big problem, in that the kids don't have nothing to do. That's why they're getting in so much trouble. That's why they're doing so much drugs, you know. And we wasn't like that, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. we drank Wild Ice Rose. MD 2020, you know, malt liquor came out. That was big with us, you know. Okay. I got so drunk one night, man, they took me home and put me between the storm door and the door, rang the bell and ran. That's cool. And my mother opened the door, I fell in the house. She beat my ass all the way upstairs to the bathroom, man. I threw up and stuff. But I mean, we used to get drunk like that all the time, though, man, you know. So look, I don't want to cut you, but I want to really get to, you know, because you talked about praying to God and asking about, you know, why you didn't have siblings, right? And so how did you come to
know that you had these 18 brothers and sisters?
Well, I was out one day on Good Hope Road, because we used to hang out on Good Hope Road, you know, and they had a place called Little Tavern.
Okay.
And you could go and buy a hamburger like this big. You could get a hamburger about big as my fist for 25 cents.
Wow.
So we go in there, man. We buy 4 or 5 hamburgers, you know, for 25 cents, man. You know, you get like, you know.
You can't get anything like that from McDonald's.
You can't, man. You can't get no 5. You can't get no 25-cent hamburger no more.
No,
you know.
Sir. No,
but
sir.
anyway, I met my sister Judy, my older sister Judy, because she walked up to me and she said, "Hey, brother, how you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, baby, what's up? You know, what's up?" She said,
And what year was this? In 70s?
Yeah, it was in the 70s, man, because I must have been 16 or 17.
So it was before that, because I was born in 74, so that's early 70s. So this was the late 60s.
Yeah, well, I was like, because I didn't have y'all.
Right.
I hadn't met your mother, nothing.
Right.
So I was about 16 or 17 years old, you know.
Okay.
I met your mother, man, when I was about 18.
Okay.
We got married when I was 19.
Okay.
But anyway, Judy walked up to me and told me, you know, like, she said, "What's up, brother?" I said, "Hey, nothing, baby. What's up with you?" She said, "Nothing." She said, "You know, I'm your sister, you know." I said, "Yeah, right. You're my sister, you know." She said, "No, really, I'm your sister." And she grabbed me, she hugged me, you know. And she said, "I've been watching you for a long time, you know." And she told me, she said, "I don't want you to get caught up with these drugs and shit, you know. And, you know, smoking the reefer's all right, but, you know, I better not catch you, you know, fucking with no heroin or no cocaine and none of that hard shit. Because if I catch you doing it, I'm going to get on you, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I better not catch you doing it." Back up a little bit.
Keep the mic to you close.
To back up a little bit, I had an aunt that I didn't know she was my aunt, but she used to stay with us periodically. She was a bouncer at this place called Cocoa Club, which was right there on 8th and H.
And what was her name?
Inez.
Inez, okay.
And, you know, she used to stay around G Street with us, and she had a daughter named Linda. I always just thought, you know, she was our cousin or something like that, you know. But she was actually my aunt, and Linda was actually my real cousin.
Okay.
And my mother and them never tell me nothing like that, but
You mean your foster mother?
yeah,
Okay.
But my mom, you know, she should get upset with Inez because Inez used to always give me money, and she used to always buy me these bad fly clothes and whatnot. You know, she brought me a long black leather coat one time. My mother was like, "Why you keep buying all that stuff? What we doing?" You know, Inez was like a what you call it, a lesbian.
Okay.
She liked women.
Okay.
And she dressed like a man.
Okay.
And she was a bouncer at the Cocoa Club.
Okay.
And she wasn't to be messed with, you know. I mean, she used to carry a little billy club with her like this, you know. And she came in the alley one day, man, I was shooting crap. And she hit me on my shoulder with that thing. "Wow, what'd I tell you about being around in the alley, you know? You want some money here?" She gave me $40, $50, you know? "Get your ass on out of here," you know, like that. And it was like, damn, man, who is that? You know, my friend didn't even really know her like that, you know?
Okay.
But she looked out for me a lot, you know.
And so you met Judy.
Like I said, I met Judy, man, and she said, I know who your real mother is. I said, "My real mother?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Bernice not your real mother. She's your foster mother. And your name not Johnson, your name is Fuller. And I can take you and show you to your real mother. I mean, I can show you your real mother, but I don't want you to, I'm not going to actually take you and introduce her to you like that right now."
She said she was going to take you to meet your mother. And so what happened from there?
So, you know, she didn't do it right away. Because, you know, like I said, man, I was hanging out in the street, you know, I was ripping and running, I was playing with a band, you know. I used to box for the boys club, you know, number 9's boys club up at Stewart Junior High. And, I was just doing a lot of stuff, man, you know, working with the hospitality house and stuff, you know. But eventually, man, I got in the car with her and she took me and showed me, you know, she drove by, because mom and them lived in Mayfair.
Okay. Your biological mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
They lived in Mayfair.
Okay.
And so Judy drove by, and she was sitting out on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
She pointed at her, she said, that's your mother right there. I said, man, what? She said, I'm going to take you to meet everybody. So I don't know how she hooked it up, but she hooked it up to a point that she took me to a Banks place with my mother and Michael and Vicky and Nell and Kenny. They lived there.
These are your younger siblings.
Yeah, and my father, you know, he was always there when I was there a lot too, you know. But I met my father before I met any of them, but I didn't know who he was.
Where'd you meet your father?
When I was graduating from Turl Junior High School.
Okay.
He came to me one day and gave me a suit, and I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm your father," and we just walked away, you know. And I said, "Damn," you know. I told Bernice, you know. She was like, "Oh, that was just some kind of." That was just some kind man.
Okay, so she brushed it off.
Yeah,
okay.
You know, we know him, you know, he know us and all that, but, you know, they didn't want me to know. And but when Judy took me and met my mother, actually met her and met my brothers and sisters, you know, I went back home and I confronted my foster mother, Bernice.
What did you say to Bernice?
And I was like, Mom, why you never tell me I was adopted? She said, I didn't want you to leave me, you know? And I didn't want to tell you about them because I didn't want you to leave me, you know? Because you all I got, and this, that, and the other. We went through a thing, you know? And I told her I'd never leave you, Mom, you know what I'm saying? But I did go over there and stay with them.
How long did you stay?
I stayed over there, you know, sometimes weeks at a time because I left home, man, when I was like 18. And I started staying with my Aunt Laverne.
Okay.
She lived on Good Hope Road, right off Good Hope Road, in a house with Calvin, my cousin Calvin. And so I used to go to work with her in the morning and show her to cook because she used to work. She was the head cook at Howard Johnson's down Eastover. So she would take me to work with her in the morning and pay me to do breakfast. I'd cook eggs and bacon and stuff like that, grits and stuff like that, and serve.
And this was at the Howard Johnson?
Yeah, I was at Howard. So I had a job. So I was making money with my Aunt Laverne. And I was staying with Aunt Laverne. I go see my mom, Bernice and Florrie and Carrie and Brendan, all them periodically, you know. Because like I said, I had gotten older. When I was little, you know, I was like 8, 9 years old, man. I can remember they used to, on Christmas Eve, they would wait till Christmas Eve to go get a Christmas tree. I never knew until now that they did that because most of the time they'll give you the tree free.
Okay.
Because they had to get rid of it.
Okay.
So they would wait till Christmas Eve to go get the tree.
And
they would make me go to bed. But in the morning when I come downstairs for Christmas, we had this great big old tree and it always touched the ceiling, you know? Huge tree, man. But anyway, fast forward back to my mom and them, man, and Judy and all them. I got to knowing them. And I was still, you know, we were still doing the black drama thing, you know. And, you know, like I said, I was playing congas. About 5 or 6 of us played congas, you know. And your mother and all them was African dancing and all them. And I came home one night and your mother was talking to Sabu on the telephone.
And Sabu was Michael?
Yeah. She was talking to Mike on the telephone. And she was telling Mike about her and Daphne went to Maine or something, and they had a pet pig and all this, that, and I snatched the phone from Mike. I said, man, give me the phone. I'm going to call somebody, man. Get off the phone. You know, I was kind of rough on him. He wasn't hard, you know. And I was older than him, you know. So I kind of like, you know, manhandled him somewhat, you know. Give me the phone. I snatched the phone. So the next day I went to work. She was down on the stage, right, and I was coming down the aisle of the auditorium, you know, and she was like, why you talk to your brother like that? Why you treat your brother like that? I said, you know my brother? She said, yeah, I know your brother. Me and your brother good friends, you know? She said, nah, you shouldn't do him like that, you know? So I was like, damn, you know? And she was cute, man. You know, she's still cute, but she was really, you know.
So that the way she talked to you turned you on, basically.
Yeah, you know, it did. And I was like, I didn't know she knew my brother like that, you know. And so, in getting to know everybody that we work with, we just, we had parties and things like that, man. And, I fell in love with her, man. But it was astonishing for me to understand all these brothers and sisters I had.
Okay.
And then I started, I had started understanding who Butch was, because I saw Butch one time.
And Butch is who?
My oldest brother.
Okay.
I saw him one time. He walked through the vestibule when I was living on G Street.
Okay.
He walked through the vestibule. I think he was with Inez or somebody like that. But he kept looking at me, and I asked my mother, I said, Mom, who that dude keep looking at me like that? Who that? She said, oh, he's some kind of Inez or something like that.
Okay.
She just brushed it off, you know.
So Bernice was really in fear of you. Not that she was trying to keep it from you in that sense, but she was in fear of you leaving her because she had no kids. You were her only.
I was the only child.
Her only child. What age did you find out that you were actually given away to Bernice?
I must have been 16, 17.
When you were given to Bernice, you was
She told me. Bernice told me, Mama gave me to her when I was 3 days old.
Wow, 3 days old.
3 days old.
Fresh out the hospital.
Fresh out the hospital.
So did your mother, your biological mother, Mom Fuller, and Bernice, did they know each other?
Yeah, they knew each other.
Okay. All right.
And Inez and all, they knew each other. See, this the whole thing. Like, my mother was an Eastern Star.
Okay.
And my father was a Masonic.
Your biological mother was an Eastern Star, and your biological father was a Mason.
Right.
Okay.
But Bernice and them was Eastern Star too.
Okay.
But they was playing in music in the church and stuff like that. So that's how, see, communities then, we were more closer related as black people because of the time.
Okay.
The
struggle, if you would say, or the movement.
Yeah.
The Black Power movement and things of that nature.
The struggle that black people had to deal with back in the day. Like Bernice, she was a housekeeper.
Okay.
She did domestic work.
Okay, so she was a domestic
She used to
woman.
take me to work with her, and she used to work for this senator over there, and the senator lived in Georgetown.
Okay.
And the house that she worked in had like 20 or 30 rooms in it,
Wow.
And what she used to do was she used to wash and iron their clothes.
Okay.
That's all she used to do was wash and iron their clothes, because they had other people that clean the rooms and, clean the kitchen and all of that. All she did was wash and iron clothes. And I used to sit there watching, looking at TV while she, ironing people's clothes.
So it's sort of like the movie that helped, with the exception of she didn't actually raise their children, but she would do the domestic work around the house.
Right. She would iron. She ironed all the clothes and stuff like that, man.
And so getting back to, you met Butch, okay?
As a matter of fact, where Butch is concerned, they was living in this high-rise apartment over there off Wheeler Road.
Okay.
And I used to go over there, and Brenda would give me clothes that he didn't want no more, you know? That's how I was real. I was clean, man, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. Brenda was Butch's wife?
Yeah.
Was they married at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and they knew me, and I knew them, and,
Okay.
I would come home, she'd say, come on, I got some stuff I'm getting rid of belong to your brother. You can come get it, I'd go get it,
Okay. Okay.
And he didn't mind, We were tight, I don't think we were as tight as we were then now.
Okay.
I guess because we're older, and we're less. We don't see each other. We don't see each other as much as we used to then.
Okay.
But I used to go and stay over on G Street, man, for weeks. 2 or 3 days.
You mean Banks Place?
Yeah.
Banks Place. Okay.
Yeah, on Banks Place. I used to go over there and stay
with your biological mother and your brothers and sisters.
Right. I used to go in there and stay with them, and my father was in the house at the time, and
What did you know about your biological father? And you said he was in the house, but you really didn't have a relationship with him. But what did you know of him?
I didn't know nothing about him. Just that he was my father.
Okay.
I knew he worked at the Pentagon.
Okay.
That's all I knew. And when I went in the military, I got in trouble.
Okay.
Because I went downtown with your mother and Mike.
Okay.
And I was smoking reefer. You know.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention. I was just hanging with them.
Okay.
You know, because he was my brother and she was my girl.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And I was older than both of them. You know, but they were shoplifting.
Okay.
So we got on the elevator. I would push the button to the floor. He said, "This guy must have been a detective or something." He said, "Push it up to the 10th floor, the 9th floor, or something, to the highest level floor it was." I was like, "What, nigga? Who was you?" You know.
Right.
Then he flashed his bag. You know, I know y'all shoplifting. You know, and I was like, I ain't stole shit. You know what I'm saying? But then I had to realize him and her stealing.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So. They let them go, but they kept me because I was the oldest.
Wow.
So I had to go to court and everything. You know, I told the judge. You know, the judge was like, "Well, you gonna go in the military or you going to jail?"
So he gave you an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, "What you gonna do?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna go in the military, man." You know, so I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
You know, and
All right. So the judge gave you a choice: jail or the military.
The judge gave me a choice. And I think my father had something to do with it too. I don't know, because he knew a lot of people, you know.
But he didn't know you were at Morton Stilling, though.
No.
Okay.
No, but
Did he show up? Did he come to court when you had to go to court?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I just remember actually joining the Marine Corps, and I went down there and took the test and everything. Then I married your mother, because I asked your grandfather, you know, on your mother's side,
Okay.
for your mother's hand in marriage.
And what did he say?
And he was like, before he even said anything, your grandmother said, "Oh, hell no. She too young." And so your grandfather said, "Well, he gonna marry one of y'all going out of here with him tonight." He gonna marry one of y'all, you know. And it was a lot of different things, man. You know, he always said I'm lying about stuff. But for real, man, he did have me in his cab. And he put a pistol on the seat, and he was drinking liquor, and he was asking me, "You want a drink?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "What's your intentions is with my daughter?" You know, he did do that, but he keeps saying he didn't do that, but he did that.
God rest his soul.
He was just trying to scare me, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. But we used to have parties over at your mother's.
Oh, my grandparents' house?
No, over there when they was living on 37th Street.
Okay.
In an apartment. You know, we all went over there for a couple of parties. You know. And I used to walk over there and see her almost every day or every other day, you know. I wore out some shoes walking to see her, you know. But like I said, we worked on the
Black Drama Incorporated.
Yeah, we worked on this in this group called Black Drama Incorporated, and you know, of course, I was, you know, I went through a thing singing with Heaven's. They call us Heaven's Little Angels. We sang through that, went through that. And I got in the military, man. I used to go AWOL.
Okay. So for people who may not know what that is, AWOL, you used to leave without permission.
Yeah, absent. You know, that's
absent without leave.
Yeah, absent without leave, because they wouldn't give me leave. You know.
Okay.
I go to the command house, "Sir, I'm trying to get home this weekend, sir." You know. They was like, "Nah, Fuller, you can't go." And okay, they put me on mess duty. You know, I clean the pots and pans, you know. I mean, they were so big I could get inside them with the big old scrubber and scrub them, you know, then get out and spray them with the water.
Okay.
I'd be finished before everybody.
Okay.
So on Thursday night, I haul ass. I jump on the bus and come home.
Oh, wow.
You know, and a lot of times, man, my father would come down and pick me up from the station, you know.
Okay.
And, but I remember your mother, you know, she had a miscarriage. And they wouldn't give me leave, man. So I left anyway. And I came home, and they were sending my check to the post office, you know. And your mother would go down there and pick it up for me, you know. So this one time she went down there, she told me, she came back. I said, "You got the check?" She's like, "No, hell no." She said, "Got a big ass picture up on the wall." Talking about
wanted,
most wanted by the FBI, you know.
So they put a wanted poster out on you because you were AWOL.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, they sent chasers after me. You know.
Okay. So what are chasers like?
Chasers are military personnel, military MPs.
Okay.
They'll come to your home and get you and bring you back.
Okay.
That's what they did. They came and got me, and took me over to took me down to Quantico.
Okay.
I mean, took me down to the Navy Yard.
Okay.
And locked me up. Then they came from, some more chasers came and got me, took me to Quantico.
Okay.
And they took me from Quantico back to Camp Lejeune.
Okay.
You know,
And how long did you stay? How did you stay in the military prison?
I was in there a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
How long did I stay in the military? I was in there about 3 years.
In the prison?
No, not in prison, in the military.
How long did you stay in the military prison?
Not long, because every time I get somebody transfer me.
Okay.
At the time, I didn't know it was my father, but it was my father.
Okay.
Because my father worked for the commandant of the Marine Corps.
Okay, so he was the administrator for the head ranking officer on base, basically.
Well, he was the head. He was the head. He worked for the head ranking officer at the Pentagon.
Okay.
Who was the commandant of the Marine Corps.
Okay.
My father worked there.
Okay, so your father was basically cutting your orders.
Yeah.
Wow.
So every time I got in trouble, he transferred me to another company.
Okay.
Every time you go to a new company, he give you a clean slate.
Okay.
That's how I got an honorable discharge when I got out.
Okay.
Because had it been up to them, they would have given me a dishonorable discharge.
But you also went in the military during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't go because Butch was over there.
Okay.
And they couldn't send two brothers.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So in that respect, he went over there, instead of me,
Now I remember some time ago you showed me a picture though of your whole platoon who did go, and it's like 80% of them didn't come back.
Didn't come back, man. I haven't been down to the wall yet, man, to see nobody's name, man.
Do you remember some of their names?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that feeling like for you to know that, one, you couldn't go because of the brother situation, but to these guys that you built a bond with, that they lost their lives over in Vietnam. How did that make you feel at the time?
It hurt.
Okay.
It really did. It hurt. And one of the guys that I was in the military with, he lived in, I think he lived in Philly,
Mm-hmm.
And we fell out of touch with each other though over the years,
Mm-hmm.
But his name was Bo, He used to box for the military,
Okay.
And he lived next door to me and your mother,
Okay.
He had a little boy. I used to call him Cookie Monster.
Okay.
Because he would always come in my house and eat up all my cookies,
Okay. Okay.
But Bo used to always say, I'm the little brother he never had, man. He used to always box with me and stuff, He kind of taught me how to fight,
So I want to get back to your brothers and sisters, right? So, you've met Butch, you've met your younger siblings, Michael, Vicky, Kenny,
Nell.
I
met Janice, because my father drove me up to New York, I think. I met Janice.
Because you said all the siblings were given away to families who were Masons and Eastern Stars, is that correct? And who orchestrated the adoption of all these kids?
Well, from my understanding, from what Butch told me, it was our grandfather.
Okay, so your father's father.
Right.
So he was also a Mason.
Right.
Okay, so he orchestrated the adoption of all your mother's children. Okay. That makes me ask the question, how did you think that it made your mother feel about her children being given away, or do you think she was okay with it? She was a part of it.
It's not like she didn't know where we were.
Okay.
She knew where we were.
Okay.
Butch always tried to make a thing of the fact that he didn't know where we was at.
Okay.
But Mama knew where we was at.
Okay.
And like I said, man, when we came home, because eventually all of us came home.
Okay.
We might have stayed. Like I stayed at home for a little while. But Vicky, Nell, and Butch were the only ones that really stayed with Mama, because your Uncle Michael, he stayed with his Aunt Movelle.
Okay, which is your mother's sister.
Which is my mother's sister.
Okay.
He stayed with them.
And what about Judy and Janice? They both were in...
Well, Judy and Janice used to stay in New York.
Okay.
Judy came back home and helped take care us.
Okay.
You know, with Mama.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
she came back home and helped take care of Nell and Vicky
Okay.
and Kenny.
Okay. What about your sister, Movell?
I met Mo. When did I meet Mo? I met Manira. I must have been 20-ish, 19-ish, something like that, because she was married to Joe.
Joe Tate. Okay. Uncle Joe.
He's
okay.
a saxophone player. You know, Joe Tate wrote a lot of music for Chuck Brown.
Right. Right.
And them. He was very, you know, he knew how to record and he knew how to run all that stuff.
Write,
you know?
write, and produce music.
Right. He knew how to write it and produce it and everything and market it. He knew all of that, man. But, you know, they screwed him a lot, man, because a lot of people didn't pay him after he did stuff for them, you know.
Okay.
And they still rumbling with that now, you know, because we used to have a singing group called what was the name of our group? The Brotherhood.
Okay.
And we used to go to Manura's house and practice in the basement, you know. And, you know, Sansaray kind of pissed me off when she wrote in her book, you know, that, you know, we were down there smoking reefer and this, that, and the other.
But was it true?
Huh?
But was it true?
It was true, but I'm saying that's not the only thing we was doing.
Okay, but you have to.
We was down there making music.
I understand, but she was a child, you know. She was, and this is what she's saying. So, you know, you can't be mad at that because
I'm not mad at her. I'm just saying, you know, she didn't ask my permission to put my name in her book.
Well,
I don't think she put my name in there.
Right.
So I'm not mad about it, you know.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, to me, man, it was like certain things you don't say about a family in terms of what they do. Certain things, like I wouldn't sit here and tell you Butch did this and did that, you know. I wouldn't sit here and tell you Butch got high or Butch drank a lot. I wouldn't tell you nothing like that because it's not right. You know, that's personal.
I think, you know, I think you're correct in that, and not to cut you off, but I think just as you and your siblings probably still have some, I call it untreated trauma from your childhood, you know, not knowing each other, growing up in separate homes, being given away, thinking that you were, you know, a part of this family, or this was your last name, or this is who you were, and to find out that you were someone else, right? That's some trauma that, you know, that can linger on for years. And I think in Sansa Ray's defense, I would say that, you know, from her perspective, right, what she was seeing going on, right, especially as a young girl and a woman, you know, women and men tend to have their outlook tends to be different, right? And so from her perspective, you know, she's seeing all these things going on, and she's a writer, you know, she's an artist, so she wants to express herself. And like you said, you know, I read the book, and I know she didn't put names in the book. She didn't associate people with certain things, but she did tell her story, and that's her story, you know. And you have to respect that, because
Well, I tell you that myself. I mean, we should get high. I mean, high. You know what I'm saying? For days. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We had what you call acid, and I'd be high for days, man. I mean, I come home on leave, you know. High and be high till I go back, you know. I remember one time I went back to base and I had a turban on and a throat, and I got off the bus because the bus was like on base.
Okay.
I heard that, you know, they was calling taps, right? Or not taps, but they was, you know, raising the flag and everybody was falling out for formation. So I ran to my company and jumped in formation, and I forgot to take the turban and throw off. So I'm standing in throw. Yeah, I was fucked up. So I'm standing in line, and the drill instructor came by and said, "You goddamn communist pig! Get that shit off! Get in there, Barry, get that shit off!" I was, oh, damn, excuse me, sir.
You know what? You deserved it because you was high.
I was fucked up, man.
Then let me ask you a question, because you said you had on a turban. So that means you had accepted Islam at this time. You became Muslim. So when did you become Muslim, and how did you become Muslim?
Okay, we was, you know, me and your mother, when we got married, because we got married at her aunt's house. What's her cousin's name? Oh man, live uptown, up northwest. Donnie. We got married up here.
Aunt
Donnie's,
Effie.
Aunt Effie's house. We got married at her house. Man, your mother was beautiful, man. Came downstairs, beautiful, man. But the night before, man, Umar was cutting my hair and whatnot. He told me, he said, man.
And who was Umar?
Umar was Buhari's and them father.
So that's Judy's husband.
He was Judy's husband at the time.
Okay, your sister Judy. Okay.
Buhari and Lukman and all of them girls, man, you know, mostly came from Umar, you know.
Okay.
But anyway, Umar took me one night. See, we used to sit at Judy's house when me and mother, we left her house because we were staying with her parents when we got married.
Okay.
We left her house because her mom and dad used to make fun of us when we made salat.
Okay.
Which was very disrespectful to me and her, for that matter. And they used to, you know, very.
Because they were Christian.
Yeah, they didn't understand what Islam was all about and none of that. You know, they thought it was some kind of terrorist group or whatever. Because I can remember when the B'nai B'rith killings took place. You remember that?
No, I don't.
Well, it was. There was some Muslim brothers that went up to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's house.
Okay. Oh, I remember that. I do
Kareem
remember.
Abdul-Jabbar had a home. He had like a halfway house
Okay.
type of place where, you know, women and children stayed. And, you know, I don't know why it happened or what they did it for, but I know there's some Muslim brothers from the B'nai B'rith organization went in there and they shot all the women and drowned all the kids. And one of the women that they shot in the head 9 times lived to testify against their ass, you know.
And these guys were Muslim at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. They were extremists.
Yeah, so the call went out.
Were they black or were they foreigners?
They was black.
Okay.
I think they was black. But the call went out, you know, all us that's, you know, that belong to the mosque, we need to come to the mosque.
Okay.
And you know.
And this is very interesting because this is a part of the black Muslim experience, you know, in this Washington D.C. area that a lot of us who are Muslim today probably never heard of or aren't aware of.
We used to belong to a mosque. I don't remember the name of it now, but it was right across the street from Howard University's campus.
Okay.
And the Amir, I don't even remember what his name is now, but they called all the Muslims that they had contact numbers for and told us to come to the mosque and post up, you know, and the brothers had to post up and whatnot because we don't know what's going down if anybody going to try to come and attack the Muslims, you know.
But again, these were Muslims who did this, right? So later on, what did you find out about these
I never
brothers?
found out about nothing.
Okay.
All I knew, as a matter of fact, one of the brothers lived in Mayfair. He knew Brother Hakeem. And Brother Hakeem and his family, all of us, we always been like this. We always been tight. There's another brother named Adir. He's dead now. He OD'd. He was a black belt, you know, Muslim brother. But me and your mother used to go. You ever heard the name Karima?
Yeah.
Well, your mother and Karima were real tight, and your mother and Hakeem's wife Ayana was real tight.
My godmother.
And you know, we used to go to me and your mother used to go up to Karima's house, man, because we lived in Mayfair. We used to go up to Karima's in an apartment, and me and Dear used to get high, man. We'd lay on the floor, listen to jazz, and your mother and Kareem be talking and whatever. But you know, the community was tight. We used to go. That's why we started taking y'all to the Istimas, man.
I remember that.
You know, getting in the cars, taking y'all all across country, and you know, letting y'all see the elders and listen to the stories that the elders had to tell about their understanding of Islam and stories of the different prophets and, you know, trying to learn the Sunnah. See, Umar took me to the mosque one night and introduced me to Islam.
Okay.
And, you know, I was just totally convinced, man, that had to be the real deal.
And it's interesting you say this because today, you know, we have a culture of children who are addicted to all types of drugs, right? And a lot of them associate with being Muslim or associate with Islam, right? And a lot of us, you know, are very judgmental of that, right? But I look at you as my father, who, when you're telling me these stories, how you all used to indulge, I would say, right? When did you come to the realization or the awareness that, hey, these two things don't go together? Because I don't want to get into, you know, your addiction. You know, we know that you did have an addiction problem, right? For many years. But when did you come to the realization that the drugs and Islam, they don't mix, they don't go together?
When I begin to see the breakdown of the community, you know, when I begin to see like you never met Brother Jabril.
Okay.
I mean, Brother Jamil. He was married to what's his sister's name?
You mean Nafisa's father, Jamil?
Yeah.
I knew Brother Jamil.
No, I'm saying you didn't know him like I did.
Okay.
Y'all was kids, you know.
Okay.
But he was like a mentor for me.
Okay.
And he was fluent in Arabic. He was very scholarly, man. He knew some shit about it. I mean, he had a library. He had books all the way around his wall like that in his house.
Okay.
You know? And most of them was in Arabic.
Okay.
That's how fluent and stuff he was, you know. But you know, the thing with smoking herb got out of hand because it went from herb to basin, you know, to heroin, to other shit, you know. And they wouldn't let me do none of that shit. You know, they would never let me shoot no dope, none of that, man. Like, even Joe Kirby, man, he wasn't Muslim, but we worked together because I worked at DC Public School. And Joe Kirby and Ronald Smalls were my best friends, you know. Were two of my best friends, man. But they would never let me shoot no drugs, man. You know, they said you can snort it, but I better not catch you shooting it up, man, you know. And took both of them out, man. You know, and all I can say at their funerals, man, is that they saved my life because they wouldn't let me do that shit. And their thing was, man, your wife ain't gonna get mad at me. You know, I ain't fucking with Sister Kai, you know what I'm saying? So, your mother's it still is a great asset to me, man. You know, in that.
I used to hear you say that Allah sent you your own personal angel. Expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying, man, she's stuck with me, man, through thick and thin, man, you know, and no matter what, man, even when she took y'all and left me, she did that to bring me to my consciousness, you know, that family is more important than anything else in the world. She made me realize that, you know, and, you know, we used to go down to the park, down the street, down off of
Anacostia.
Yeah, off Minnesota Avenue. And Royez and everybody be down there playing on stage and whatnot, man. And we be smoking herb. I'll stop and go make salat and come back. They be like, damn, nigga, how you do that? You know, how you gonna get high like that and go make prayer? I said, man, I got to make prayer, man. I ain't that damn high, you know what I'm saying? I don't get that high where I can't make prayer, you know, but you know, you can't, that's what Allah says, you can't make salat unless you know what you're doing. You can't get in and make salat, think you're making salat, man, and you tore up from the floor up. No, you can't do that, man. You can't be no Amir. You can't lead salat, man, if you don't know what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? Because that's a serious thing, man. You
so
know?
would you say that your indulgence of drugs and things of that nature, although it's an experience that, you know, we're all glad that Allah brought you through, but it gives you a different awareness today, being Muslim, you know, being the man that you are, you know, having children who are Muslim and having a family that practices Islam.
Yeah.
When you look back on it now, you know, it gives you a different perspective, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you know, I'm sure, man, people do what they do. You know, like I say, man, you know, I ain't perfect, you know, but I don't smoke reefer. I don't mess with heroin or cocaine or none of that. I don't fuck with that boat no more, you know. I used to do it all, man, because I knew everybody, you know. And I ain't never had to pay for shit. You know, they be like, little nigga, run get this and take your shit off the top. And that's what I did, you know. I never had to pay for nothing, man. But at a certain point, man, I had to stop. And Skeeter's father got mad with me.
Big no.
Yeah, because I came clean with your mothers. I told her, I said, yeah, I do this, I do that, and I said, and other niggas do it too. And I might have mentioned Skeeter's father's name.
No, might have, you did.
And then his wife and your mother was tight.
Miss
So
Brown.
he said, nigga, I ought to whoop your ass. I was like, man, what the fuck I supposed to do, man?
Right.
I had to tell the truth, man. I had to come clean, man.
What was some of the best advice that you got when you became Muslim?
I think the best advice I got was from Umar. Because Umar wouldn't let me come in the house if I was high. He wouldn't let me come in his house. He was like, nah, man, you can't come in here, man. Go home, get straight, Because he stopped, and he said, you can't do that. You can't serve two masters, you know what I'm saying? And he was a great mentor to me, man. He beat the shit out of Buhar and all them, man. But, it did them good. Because the neighborhood they lived in, man, they would have been something else had he not been there and did what he did. Because everybody in that neighborhood up on 37th Street respected Umar.
They did.
And Umar was a medic.
In the service?
Yeah.
In the military?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, he had a way of stepping to you, no matter what frame of mind you was in. And I can remember me and Umar was standing on Florida Avenue in Georgia. Remember they used to have that record shop down there on the corner right there? Me and Umar was standing there for something, I forget for what. We was going somewhere, coming somewhere or something, but this brother passed. I said, hey, man, what's up, blood? He said, man, nigga, I don't know you. Umar walked up on him. Whatever he said to him, the brother came back and said, man, I got all this shit on my mind, man. I ain't mean to say that to you, man. I apologize, man. Please accept my apology, man. So Umar was that kind of nigga that he could step to you, man, and straighten you up, man, and make you understand what was right and what was wrong, man.
But in a humble way, in a way.
In a very masculine, humble way, I remember Judy called me one time talking about, he slapped the shit out of me. So I said, I'm coming up there. I went up there with my bat, and I came in the house. I came in the back door. It was on 37th Street. I came in the back door, and I was sitting on the floor in the living room. And he said, hold up, man, hold up. Let me tell you what happened, man. And he told me, he said, man, we was arguing. She kicked me in my joint, and it was just an automatic thing, I wasn't trying to slap her like that, but she kicked me in my dick, man. What the fuck are niggas supposed to do, So I said to both of them, don't y'all call me again,
You miss Umar?
I do, man.
Yeah.
I do, man. Like I said, man, he was a big brother to me, man,
Alhamdulillah.
And like I said, man, when I was little, man, I used to pray and ask God, man, why I ain't got brothers and sisters, man? Little did I know, man, it's 19 of us, man. Those of us who are still left. I mean, I even got to know the brothers and sisters on my other wife's fathers.
So your father had how many wives?
My father had 2 wives.
Okay, and so from those 2 wives, he had 19
He had
children.
11 by my mother.
Wow.
All right? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He had 8 by his first wife.
Okay. Now, was he dealing with his first wife and your mother kind of at the same time?
I don't know. I don't know what Pop did. Sometimes, Pop came and came and went.
Stone.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like I said, man, he worked at the Pentagon. He would never tell me what he did. A lot of times, man, when I took leave off base, he picked me up at the bus stop. At the Greyhound. Once I got there, he picked me up, take me home, man. We sit around and smoke reefer, me and him. But I didn't even know he was in the Masonic order, man. And then we were going through his stuff one day, man, and everybody was talking, I want this, I want that. I just took a picture, and in the back of the picture was his thing showing that he was a Mason 33 degrees.
Your father?
Yeah. It's up there in my belongings somewhere. I had to search through it,
So you met your father twice. You met your father at Terrell,
Yeah.
Although you saw him in and out your mom's house.
Right.
You never had a relationship with him, but you met him?
Well, when I stayed over at my mother's house, we had a relationship.
Okay.
He had a rocking chair like I got upstairs. He'd be in that chair, man. And we used to talk, and he would always say, you could be right. You could be right, you know? And he knew all the time, man, about Islam, you know?
Okay.
But he would always say, yeah, you know, you could be right. Because we, you know, like, me and your mother, we used to, with this group, we used to go around the communities in D.C., man. We used to have rap sessions with different groups of kids, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know.
What would your advice be to new Muslims today and Muslims in general, you know, in terms of practicing their religion, in terms of not serving two masters, right? And in terms of, you know, family, marriage, things of that nature?
Well, what I would say is, if you're married, you need to remember, or you need to keep the focus on the fact that your children are your most precious thing that God has given you in life, above the consciousness that you're Muslim. You know, because, you know, to be conscious that you're a Muslim and understand what that word means is that you're one who submits to God's will. And that means you got to be an example to your kids of submitting your will to God's will. And to this day, man, that's why I don't get high like that, man. I don't, you know, if I take a drink or something, I don't get drunk. You know, I was sitting over there at Artif's and them, man, and the band members, man, they was passing around cigar blunts, you know what I'm saying? And I had to get up and get out the room, man, you know. But before I did that, I gave everybody a bracelet, you know, and told them what it was, read it for them. Then I went in another room, I said, because I ain't trying to get high like that no more.
What would your advice be to new Muslims today?
To be real with yourself, man. You know, if God says that intoxicants are an abomination and they cause enmity between you and loved ones, then understand what that means, man. At some point, man, you're gonna fall out with the people that love you most. With the people that love you most, y'all gonna become against one another. You know, y'all gonna fall out of love with one another, you know? That's why you have brothers killing brothers today, man, and cousins killing cousins, man, and all over some drugs, man. You know.
What about your advice to new Muslims who may think or feel like, you know, they don't know Arabic or they're struggling with their deen? And you say be real with yourself. What is something that you would tell them to kind of
realize? This is one of the things you got to realize. The Quran has been translated into every known language in the world. So some brothers might say, well, if you're not reading the Arabic, you're not reading the Quran. But somebody who read Arabic, knows it and speaks it fluently, translated it into whatever language it was done, you're going to get something from that. You know, that's a technicality. You know, it's, you know, what I learned by heart. By reciting over and over and over and over and over again. That's what we used to have Quran hooker. And that is, we used to sit in circles. And the brother would recite Fatiha over and over and over and over again. And every time he recited and stopped, then you recited. And whatever you forgot, he'd tell you, hold up, that's wrong, and go over it again. And you walk away knowing it. Like I know 4 or 5 surahs, you know? Just through reciting it over and over and over again, you know?
You made your Hajj, right?
Excuse me, I made Umrah.
Okay.
Which is, it's Hajj, but it's not at the Hajj season.
Right.
I actually been to the Kaaba. I spit all over the black stone, crying and kissing it and whatnot. And I hung on the door, the foot of the door. The Kaaba is as high just ceiling. Umar never had to lift me up. Not my brother Umar, but the brother that was with me that took care of me. That you know, his son-in-law and daughter. He'd lift me up, and I was hanging on the foot of the Kaaba door, man, crying and making dua to Allah, crying. While they was running around the Kaaba, I was hanging there, man, just hanging on the door.
Now, you know you can't get that close anymore.
You can't get that close no more. Listen, I was just, see that wall over there? I was this close to the Prophet Muhammad's grave. Peace and blessing be upon him. And Umar is buried next to him. I was this close. You can't get that close no more.
Right.
The closest you can get is probably out to the street. You can probably come to the curb, and that's as close. I was right there at the door. If I turned the knob and opened the door, his grave was right there. You can't do that no more.
So what did that experience mean for you when you came back? Because you was over there how long?
I was over there 6 months.
Wow. Most people don't go a couple of weeks now.
Yeah,
you know?
I was over there 6 months. But I was all over the place, man. We stayed in Mecca for like 35 days, maybe 40 days. We stayed in Medina for like 40 days. Then we was all over Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we went to Peshawar, all up in the mountains. That's why I walked through that field of marijuana, man. I took all my clothes and put them in Umar's bag, and I stuffed my bag full of marijuana. And I was sitting in the cemetery smoking, and I heard the adhan, man. I got nervous as shit. I was like, oh, damn. Oh, Lord, you know. it was like a slap in the face.
And you caught malaria.
And I caught malaria, man. That was, I think that was my punishment. You understand, for doing that, you know? But like I said, man, and they took good care of me, man. I mean, they had me like this, take me to the doctor, man. And they was like, say salat, brother, say salat. I said, I ain't got voodoo or nothing, man. They said, don't matter, say salat. So the whole thing, the bottom line is this, man. You can't say you believe and then don't try to practice what you say you believe. If you say you believe in Allah, and you believe that Allah is the creator, then you have to worship him. You have to show him. That's salat is gratitude towards him. Also, it's our way of asking him properly for whatever it is we want. You just can't say, oh God, give me such and such. It's a certain format that he taught Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba taught us. That's what we follow.
The sunnah.
That's the sunnah that we follow, the way they did what they do. That's why it bothers me a lot, man, when, you know, some people say it ain't about the sunnah. It is. Because the sunnah, it don't mean you're in a certain sect. The sunnah means you trying to follow a particular format.
A generation. Yeah, you're following the generation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You trying to follow,
and the 3 generations following.
Yeah, it's just like a son see his father wash his face and wash his hands and whatnot. That's where we get it from our elders. We try to do what they did because that's what got them over. See, we want to be close to Allah, man. You got to know how to get there. You know, you can't get there dirty. You got to be clean. Your head got to be clean. You know. That's why, man, we didn't get high like that till after Isha.
Okay.
You know.
So y'all wanted to make sure you were sober. During the day.
Yeah, we didn't fuck around like that during the day, man. But after Isha, I'd be back and going on sunshine, and I'd be out most of the night, but I'd come back and get sober for Fajr. You see, that's just, man. It's just the world is such now, man, that there's so much stuff out there now, man. It's really designed to take you out. It's not designed to be fun no more. It's not fun no more. Getting high used to be fun, you know. Getting high used to be like, hey, man, and we was doing things, you know, playing ball or playing in a band or singing in the groups, and, you know what I'm saying? But now it ain't fun no more, man. It's a sickness now, you know, because it's something that they do, man. And then once they get that way, man, they realize that they all fucked up and they start fucking things up. Excuse my language on the air like that, but I'm just saying, That's why Allah said intoxicants are an abomination. Abomination means something dirty.
But you know, through all your experiences, not knowing, being given away at 3 days old, not knowing your siblings until you were probably 17, 18, 19 years old, being reconnected with them, going through your addiction, Allah still was so merciful to you. Because even through all that, He allowed you to make Umrah. And as you always say, you had no money when you went to make Umrah.
Let me tell you how I made Umrah. We was sitting at the Istima one time, and the brothers were saying, you know, man, if you just make intention, Allah will make a way for you to go. So I called his bluff. I called Allah's bluff. That's what I'm saying. I called Allah's bluff. I said, okay, Lord, I really want to go. If you want me to go, I really want to go. And, you know, I'm making intentions right now. I really want to go. So I raised my hand. I said, brother, I'm trying to go, you know. So it's like, all right, come on up here, you know. I ain't even had a visa, man, when I got there.
When you got to Mecca, you didn't have a visa?
When we got to Jeddah,
okay,
you know, which is where you come in at in Saudi Arabia, you're supposed to have permission. You're supposed to have the visa. I didn't even have a visa.
So how did you get in?
And the money that I got, brothers gave me. You know, before I got on the plane, brothers gave me money. Here, man, here, man, here, man. And then Umar, he was a CPA. He was a certified public accountant.
Okay.
He was writing me checks. I was like, Umar, man, look at this. Would you want it? Yeah. He write me a check. Boom. That's how I had rugs. I had a rocking chair, all that, man, when I came home. But everything we needed, like I broke protocol when we was in Afghanistan. And was it Afghanistan? I knew we was at a Bundressa. But anyway, I broke protocol because I was like, I can't sit there on the ground and eat that food with flies all over it. I ain't doing it, man. I ain't trying to eat that shit, you know? So I left the madrasa, which I wasn't supposed to do, and I walked through town, and I found a restaurant. When I walked in the door, they had Barry White playing.
In Afghanistan?
In Afghanistan.
Wow.
I walked in the door, and he was saying, yeah, baby. You know how Barry talk?
Yeah.
I was like, damn. I was like, y'all playing Barry White? They said, yes, brother. Yeah. You know Betty White? You know Betty White? I said, man, that's my brother. You know, Betty White, your brother? Come on in, you know. So I said, wait a minute. I went back and I got Umar and them. And I said, man, I found a restaurant, man, where we can eat at. And ain't no flies and shit all over it, you know. I took them back to the restaurant, man. We sat there and pigged out, man. When we came back, one of the elders hit us with a cane. You know you wasn't supposed to go out. Go out. You know you wasn't supposed to go out. Wow. So when he got to me, I said, oh man, don't hit me with that damn cane. You know what I'm saying? You hit me with that cane, I'm taking a cane from you, man. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, just go to your room, bro. Just go to your room, you know? Wow. But I mean, that's how we was, man. I mean, like Omar, he was in front of the mosque, in front of the Kaaba. He was taking pictures. I said, Omar, hide the camera or something, man. He said, I got this, man. I was hanging up on the door, and I looked back. They had Umar. They had picked him up, took his camera, took the film out, and took him out and threw him on the street.
Did he get back in?
I went back out there and put him in Purda.
And brought him back in?
And brought him back in. But you know, I'm just saying, you got to dress up like a woman, man. Yeah, I'll get you back in. Come on, man. He was like this when they came in there. You know, he was like this, right?
I remember you telling me how valuable Zamzam was over there.
Man, we got to Morocco on the way home. We got to Morocco, and I had this great big old bag of Zamzam. We ain't had no money, though. And so, you know, I asked the brother, I said, man, how much does such and such cost? He was like, such. I said, all I got is Zamzam. I ain't got no more money, man. He said, Zamzam? Give me some Zamzam. You good to go, you know? And I pulled some Zamzam out. He give us a cab ride, and we went in the hotel and told them they got no money, but they got plenty of Zamzam.
What?
And man, we got hotel rooms, we got food, We got rides
all for Zamzam.
All for Zamzam, man.
Alhamdulillah.
It's precious, man. You know.
What about the train ride? You said when the train
Well,
filled up.
we was on the train, man. We was reading the hadiths, and the hadiths was saying that all the dust and the dirt and the smoke and stuff that get on your body while you feasibilillah, the smoke of the fire of hell will never touch you. And at that point, the whole car filled up with sand because we was going through the desert on the train, and we was like, wow. I mean, it was like instant. You know, we read it and then it happened. We read it and then it happened. You know, we was up in the mountains, man, and the brothers came in the mosque. They had 357s on ropes and strings and things like that, and shotguns and whatnot. Put them down. So Umar was giving the kupa. So one of the last things he said was, "If you really Muslim, you'll come and spend some time at the mosque. If you really Muslim." And they looked at him, and they looked at us. And they was like, "Who you think you talking to?" And I was like, "Yeah, ho, y'all. He don't mean it like that, you know."
They was ready to tell y'all that.
Yeah, they was like, y'all. They was ready to say, "Y'all get the fuck out of here." You know?
Right.
I said, "Umar, you can't do that. You can't talk to them." Like I said, he don't mean no harm, y'all. You know, he just trying. He just wants y'all to come because we here trying to learn
and that's the
how
thing.
to practice Islam.
Right, that's the thing. You all were young men, trying to learn this deen.
Yeah.
So you all were making plenty of mistakes along the way.
When we got to Jeddah, man, we didn't have a visa.
Okay.
So they was like, "What you here for?" So Umar was trying to explain to him. I kept telling him, I said, "Umar, tell me feasibilillah. Umar, tell me feasibilillah." And so he kept trying to explain to him. So I said, "Look, brother, we feasibilillah, man. We trying to learn Islam, man." He said, "Feasibilillah? Brother, come on." They took us straight through customs, man. They took us straight to the back door of the mosque, man, and said, "Make dua for us, brother. Make dua for us, brother." You know, I had a brother, he was a lieutenant colonel. He looked like he was 25 or so. He stayed with me, translated for me, took me everywhere I wanted to go. Then I had 5 or 6, 7, 10 kids, man. Wouldn't go home, massage my feet, wash my clothes. You know, I was like, "Well, where y'all live at? Where y'all go home?" "No, brother, we stay with you, brother. We feasibilillah with you, brother." You know, I had rode a bus with a brother, man. He said, "Man, I haven't made salat or been to the mosque."
And this was a brother that would live there, that was from there.
Yeah, he said, I don't make salat. I ain't been to the mosque or none of that because we don't practice Islam like y'all. He said, the Americans practice real Islam. Y'all really make salat and y'all really study. He said, but what we do is like
ritual.
It's just like studying history, you know. We don't really practice. I said, really? He said, yeah, man. He said, man, until I met you, brother, I had stopped making salat.
Subhanallah.
And I was like, wow.
You know, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to really sit down and talk with you and do this video is because people look for their hero. People look for their role models, right? And you've always been my best friend, my role model, right? I've tried to learn from the mistakes that you've made in your life and not make them, you know. And I know I get my passion for this deen and for, you know, worshiping Allah and trying to study and learn from you, because I saw you at a young age doing it, right? So I thank Allah for you. I thank Allah for giving you to me as my father, right? And
I thank him for giving you to me as my son.
Alhamdulillah, you know. And I just want people to see, like, you don't have to be perfect to practice this deen. Because none of us are, right? But what you have to have is sincerity. You have to have, you know, and know that Allah is real, right? And that Allah will give you anything you call on him for as long as you're sincere. But you also have to be in the right frame of mind, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, right? You can't serve two masters, right? And I wanted people to see my father, you know, because to me, you real, man. You know, you can't script this. You know what I mean? You say some things, your language sometimes gets a little overboard, and I can't catch you to cut you off, but that's who you are. You know?
See, you know, one of the things, one of the elders told me, man, I think his name was Hydra G.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Allah purposely didn't make us perfect.
Mm.
We're the only creation that he didn't make perfect.
Mm.
Everything else he created is perfect.
Mm.
It can't do nothing other than what Allah say do.
Mm.
But he didn't do that to us. He made us in his own image, sure enough.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us the mind that he got, the mindset that he got, he gave to us to choose whether we're going to do what's good or what's bad, what's real or what's fake, what's right or what's wrong. You know, whether we're going to be truthful or untruthful. You know, he gave us the power to choose that. And he did that for a reason. And that's why we're the only creation that's got a book on the Day of Judgment. Everything else I already know what's up like that. You know, they already know. They going to paradise because they ain't have a choice. They ain't have a choice. Just like Shaitan don't have a choice. He already know he gonna be the hellfire because he made out of fire. So he already know that. But he want what we got, which is the power to choose. That's what he want. See, and don't nobody know why Allah made us this way but Allah. See, that's what the average Muslim got to really sit down and think about. I don't care how much Quran you know, how much Arabic you speak, how much Sunnah dress you wear. You know, it don't mean nothing, man. If you don't understand that Allah got something special for us to do. And the only way we're going to get to do it is to be for real with ourselves and do what Allah say do. In the Quran, he said, don't do this, don't do that. If you do this, this going to happen. If you do that, this going to happen. He said intoxicants, you know, there's some good in it. He said, but the harm is greater than the good. So, you know, you hit it or whatever, drink it, but then you're going to mess around and you're going to do something that's far worse than if you had never did that. You know? I was so high one day, man, your mother was fussing at me and I was getting off work at McDonald's and I was on that little island in the street and I fell and a car rolled as close to this wall as to my head, man. I sobered up real quick.
I bet you did.
Girl, you blew my fucking high, you know? Stop, love. Excuse me, man.
So, you know, for those watching, you married Ma at what age and how long have you been married now?
I married your mother when I was 19, and we've been married 53 years this year. And we raised 5 of y'all, got 26 grand and 7 grade.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, but the point I'm trying to make though, man, is, see, Islam is real. The religion of Islam, religion, the set way of life. The word religion means a set way of life. This set way of life called Islam is real because it ain't nothing but the truth. You can get into Buddhism, Hinduism, or any other kind of ism. Christianity, you know, they're telling you that Jesus is the Son of God. King James and them changed all of that. They went in the Holy Scripture and rewrote stuff. And stuff that they couldn't translate, they just made up something. I had a brother ask me for a Quran. I said, well, man, I give you a Quran if you give me one of your books. He was a Jew. He's like, okay. He said, you know, we believe in Muhammad, but we don't believe in Jesus Christ.
Right.
And I said, how you believe in Muhammad? You don't believe in Jesus Christ when Muhammad spoke about Jesus Christ. He said, man, we just don't believe in Jesus. We just don't believe he was. And see, that's because the Holy Scripture has been tampered with. You can't tamper with the Quran. The one thing that brother Rashad Khalifa did was emphasize and make plain and clear that the Quran has a mathematical code on it where it cannot be changed in any kind of way. And one of the things that this brother, Sheikh Khalid Yassin, I ran with that brother for a minute, me and Moody. He'll tell you, man, a lot of the stuff that people couldn't translate from the Aramaic, they just made up stuff, man. They just don't know what they reading, man. So, you know, Islam is really for everybody. That's why Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came for everybody.
Mercy to the world.
Jesus was supposed to come to the Gentiles. You know, Moses was for the Egyptians, and so on and so forth. You know, they had different prophets. Man, there was over 1,000 different prophets, man, that came to mankind, and we don't even know half of them.
And we still haven't gotten it right.
And we still haven't, you know, gotten around to do what's right. You know, we still running, thinking that ain't no life after death. And Allah give us signs every day. It's life after death. After winter comes spring. After spring come fall. And then here comes summer again. You know, He's showing you life after death. Every day. Every day, man.
Every year, every month.
Every month, man. And you know, it's right here in your face, man. That's why you can't see it. Because you're not opening your eyes enough to stand up straight enough to understand it.
What you used to say, you can't see the forest from the trees.
You can't see the forest for the trees.
You're just standing in the woods.
You're in the woods, man. You got to get out the woods. You know, brother told me, he said, man, if you off the track, at some point you got to get back on the track and go back. Try to find your way back to where you was at. Once you fall off the track, you got to find your way back to the track. Once you get back on the track, then you can find your way out the woods. That's the philosophy I live with every day, man, because I realized, I said, man, I messed up a lot in my life. I've done a lot of things in my life, but the one thing I've always done was worship God. I remember they had me sitting at the Bible Way Church. Your mother went to the Bible Way. And they had me sitting in this room, turning for the Holy Spirit. You had to say Jesus, 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 and you get to a point, you know, you're just convulsing, you know what I'm saying? So I was looking around, watching people convulsing and everything, and I was like, look, man, call my mother, tell her to come get me, man. I said, because if I ain't got it, I ain't going to get it, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I know that's
and I'm ready to go home, man, you know what I'm saying? Now, I got off work when I was working at Douglas Junior High School. And I came down the back of Douglas Junior High School. Right now today, that church still sit there on the corner of Stanton Road. If you come down the back of Douglas,
I know what you're talking about.
behind Douglas, there was a young boy in there preaching. Something told me, go into church, go into church, go into church. I said, man, what the So I went into church, and I sat down, and the brother said, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to sleep at night, you hear these voices. And the voice will tell you, yeah, go ahead and do that shit. And the other voice will say, man, don't do it, don't do it. The other one will say, man, go ahead, you ain't gonna fuck up nothing. Go ahead and do that shit. But the other voice will say, nah, man, don't do it, don't do it. The choice is yours. You got to decide what you're gonna do. I that brother said, man, come on, I'll give you a ride home, because at the service, I was standing in the bus stop right there. He said, you need a ride, brother? I said, yeah, man, I'm trying to go home. Where you going? He said, I said, well, I live over Mayfair, man. So he said, oh, come on, I'll run you over there. On the way over there, man, he said, man, I'm going to stop and pick up these two girls, man. We're going to have some, going to the Bob's and have something to eat, You want to ride with us? I said, yeah, sure, I'll ride with you. So we ride. We go to the Bob's, and I got me a slice of pie, some hot chocolate or something like that. Anyway, afterwards, he took the girls home. Then he stopped at the 7-Eleven, and this dude was standing out there, selling shit, He stepped to the dude, look here, young brother, you shouldn't be doing this, that, and other. And the brother was like, man, who the fuck you think you talking to? I said, hey, man, he's a minister, man. Be cool, man. He said, okay, man, you better go ahead, man. I'm doing what I do. You know, I said, come on, man. You can't walk up on people like that. You know what I'm saying? That ain't how you do it. That ain't how you do it, you know? He was like, man, who are you? He said, you special, brother. I said, I said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He said, my God, you speaking in tongues. I said, no, man, that's Arabic. I just said I seek refuge in God from Satan, the curse, man. That's what I said. You can call that speaking in tongues if you want. Man, y'all better quit playing. That's what I told him. I said, man, y'all better quit playing with God, man. You know? And got to my house, man. He said, brother, I'm going to remember you. I said, I'm going to remember you too, man, you know? And I do, man.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? There have been times, man, where I have actually seen some things, man, that made me know, man, Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein, man.
Yes.
You know, and so, you know, He's not the most forgiving and the most merciful for nothing. Creation has that benefit because they perfect.
Right.
We not.
That's right.
So we have a benefit of forgiveness. All we got to do is ask for it.
Well, man, I want to thank you, man, for sitting here talking with me tonight, man, and just talking about your life and your experiences, man, growing up, and you know how you came to Islam and some of the advice that you gave, because I feel like a lot of it is still relevant to what's going on today.
It is, man. You know the last thing my mother said to me, man, and then she died the next day. She was in a coma, man, like for weeks at a time, right? And I used to go on Sunday and sit there and hold her hand, man, because she had an abscess on her tooth that busted and spread it to her brain. That caused her to have a stroke, you know? But anyway, she looked up at me and she said, Gregory? I said, Mama, I love you so much. She said, listen, all you got to do is ask God for what you want. All you got to do is ask him. And the scripture tell you, ask and ye shall receive. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. What we don't do is that. We don't do that. We don't ask. We don't go knocking, seeking knowledge. You know, we think we know it all already. You know what I'm saying? You know, we think, I had a brother walk up on me, tell me, man, you want to buy some oil? I said, no, man, my brother make oil, man. I'm Muslim. He said, why you ain't dressed in the sunnah? I said, what is sunnah, man? You tell me what sunnah is. He said, the throw. I said, that ain't sunnah. I said, look, man, the man made the clothes. The clothes don't make the man.
Sunnah is the actions.
Sunnah is your action. That's in your heart to be modest. You know, I look at a woman, man, she be bad. I'll be like, oh, astaghfirullah. Lord, forgive me, you know. Or I've had women hit on me. Hey, you know, sister, I'm married, you know. And I ain't trying to get another wife because one of y'all enough for me, you know.
No, that's right.
You know.
Man,
but yeah, man.
But I want to thank you, man. You know?
Gotta go, man.
Yeah.
You gotta go, man.
I always ask a lot.
I didn't have no money when I went, man. I'm serious. I mean, I had wasn't no money like that. I might have had $200-300. The day I stepped on the airplane, your mother called me on the telephone and said, you got a daughter. That was Fatima. Now you think about this. Abraham left his wife after just having a child and went to build the Kaaba. I did the same thing.
Alhamdulillah.
So I always think about that. I always say, dang, man, I did just what Abraham did, man. Because I left, I didn't meet Fatima for 6 months, man. Or more, you know, when I met her, man, you know.
So it was just me and Abdullah.
Yeah.
And you left.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, that's just what Abraham did. Peace and blessings be upon him. You know, I did the same thing, man. We was riding camels through the desert, man, drinking fifths of water, man. You know, we was like, man, we like just like the Sahaba, nigga. We just like the Sahaba, nigga. And I mean, you know, you ride a camel like this.
Right.
I said, man, we riding just like Sahaba, man. They had our turbans on. And blowing in the wind like this, man.
Quite a lot. Man, yeah, I thank y'all for joining me, man. You know, my father again, man, Abdullah Saeed, man. Gregory Fuller, as he's known by others.
That's why I chose the name Saeed. It means lucky. It means fortunate.
Okay.
You know, that's I am. That's who I am. I'm lucky, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Yeah, you know, I hope y'all enjoyed this conversation with me and my father, my best friend, man, my IB. You know, thank you for joining us for another episode of Conversations with the Brother, man. And
I'm just say one more thing, man.
Go right ahead.
Don't play with this thing. Be real with it, and be real with yourself, man. We're not perfect, man. We're not, man. You want to go get high, go get high. But you better ask Allah to forgive you for that dumbass shit. You know what I'm saying? Because He already knew you was going to do it before you did it.
Sure did.
So there ain't something you going to hide from, because the angel on your right and left, they right, oh, this nigga getting high. This nigga getting high. This nigga fornicating. He fornicating. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, man. Whatever we do, it's meant for us to do. But if we don't understand that we had to ask for forgiveness for that which we do that we know is not right, because we already know what's right and what's wrong, we're gonna blow it. We're gonna lose the ball game.
Yeah. And the goal is to finish the game.
The goal is to finish the game, man. It ain't
Victorious.
You know. It ain't rocket science. It's simple, man.
Yeah.
And that's why most people, man, they don't see it, because it's so simple, man. You know, Allah say you can have more than one woman. You gotta marry them, but you better be able to take care of them. All y'all can't be on welfare. That ain't polygamy. You know, that's usury.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All y'all on public assistance living off other people's taxes. That ain't cool. That's not Islam.
That's right.
Islam is struggling every day, man. You know, I gave the federal government 47 years, man, of civil service. That's why I get a retirement check. I paid into Social Security. That's why I get a Social Security check. You know? I ain't just taking no handout from nobody. Matter of fact, when I came out, I went to the welfare office and told them, take my wife off of welfare, because I'm home. I'm a motherfucking husband. Because they were like, well, who is you? I'm a husband. Take my wife off that fucking shit. We don't need, I'm taking care of now. You know, I'm back.
Right.
You know, your mother was mad at me. What you doing, Cole? You crazy? I said, woman, hold up. I got a job. We good.
Right.
I got you. You know, we good. You know.
Y'all take us down. Y'all listen to that.
We
man.
Good, man. You know? And to this day, man, we good, man.
Alhamdulillah. Well, man, again, man, thank y'all, man. You know, I hope y'all enjoyed my father, man, as much as I do every day, man. May Allah continue to preserve him, man. You know,
and you ain't got to believe me. It's personal. All of us got our own story.
That's right.
All of us got our own story, man, but we one family.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? We one family. We gonna all get our own stories to tell. Because on the Day of Judgment, after we get through that, and we sitting up there on the caves of light, drinking whatever we want to drink, and not getting intoxicated and talking and this, that, and the other, we gonna remember this, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, man, this is the kind of food we used to eat when I was in the dunya, man. Yeah, man, I remember that. Allah say that. All that's gonna happen, man. And one day in the sight of God is 1,000 of our years. When you look at the obituary, you see how many people die every day, man. Millions of people die every day. Thousands and millions of people die every minute. Since life ain't but 3 seconds long, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that. He said this life is not but 3 seconds long. And you think, look at how short 3 seconds is, man. You can look at it, you might see one, but you don't see the other two. It'd be gone just like that.
That's right. That's right.
That's what life is, man. We think this thing is forever.
It's not.
No, it ain't forever.
Well, man, I hope y'all enjoyed it, man. We got to go, man. You know, my father can go on, and I love to hear him, man, but he got to get up early in the morning and go somewhere. So thank y'all for joining Conversations with the Brother, man. I'm your host, man. Abdul Malik, man.
Well, y'all make dua for me, man.
Inshallah, man. Make dua for my father. Make dua for me as well. And we be making dua for all of you out there, man. So thank y'all for joining us, man. I hope y'all got something beneficial from this. I hope we didn't offend anybody. And, I hope that, a lot of what my father said was motivation and encouraging, man, to a lot of y'all, man. So,
Well, I've hung with the scholars. And you know what the scholars say? The more you know you don't know.
alhamdulillah. Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. It's a lot I still don't know.
Right. Assalamu alaikum, man. Thank y'all for joining us, man. Conversations with your brother, man. Y'all have a good night, man. Peace.